Alright, what's up, big dog? It's Llarold, and this farm strategy is hot off the presses from me. Not really all that new for the community, but something I wanted to kind of test and play around with, and it's fantastic. It is what I would recommend to players who are looking for something simple and consistent. It's great if you're new and you've made it to end game, and you have enough of an understanding of the game to do tier 16s, but maybe you can't quite wrap your head around more complex strategies like harvest with crop rotation. But it's also great if you are experienced and know the game in and out and you're just lazy, which we've all been there. Let he who has not been lazy cast the first stone. This is a stacked deck farming strategy, which means you are farming raw currency and you can liquidate all of it through the currency exchange system. So it is super easy to turn everything you farm with this strategy into chaos and divine. So you can turn time directly into money. Leafy, greeny, spendy money. All right, let's get into it, but first, if you like this video or find it helpful, you should like and subscribe so you can see more videos like it from us. Alright, so just to hit some of the critical components of the strategy, the map that I did this all on was Underground Sea. I did do it on tier 16. That's mainly so that you can have altars, functioning Eldritch Altars, just to get a lot of extra juice on all of your farming, and you can get tier 17 maps to drop. That adds a lot of value as well. I like Underground Sea because it's a dense map and it has a pretty good div card, Divine Beauty. I was hoping to see more than one of those. I got one in the span of 20 maps, which is okay. But this is basically just a turbocharged version of the Fortunate. It gives you 7 divines if you get the full set, and it's just like Fortunate, it's 12 cards to a full set, but instead of 2 divines, it's 7, so 3.5 times more valuable than the Fortunate. Pretty good. Over half a divine per card. Really, really good, and then that map is just also really good. You can do this on any map though. Dunes, Mesa, Jungle Valley, you know, the world of Rayquest is your oyster when it comes to choosing your map for this strategy. You can also do this on 8-mod maps, which I did do, but again, you don't have to. It's really up to you. I did go for 8-mod maps, both for like just more quantity and rarity, just to get more extra stuff from the strategy, but also more pack size, because pack size is really valuable here. Pack size is probably the most important thing that you can get. It maybe even would be worth it to use pack size chisels, but those are fairly expensive. It's kind of hard to justify using any of the fancy new chisels on anything other than tier 17s. And while this is a strategy you could do in tier 17s, I don't necessarily think it's worth it. I think this is better off done in tier 16s. And we should now look at the Scarab that really is kind of the core of the whole strategy, which is this, Divination Scarab of the Cloister. It adds 8 to 12 additional packs of Deidre's Devoted. I know her name is Doedre. I would rather say Deidre. That makes more sense to my mind, so her name is Deidre now. Deidre's Devoted have a 1% chance to drop a stacked deck. Doesn't seem like that can be modified by anything. Stacked decks are listed as a currency item, not a divination card. So when it comes to Eldritch Altars, if you get Eldritch Altar mods that'll duplicate your divination cards, that actually won't do anything for stacked decks, but currency duplication will. Now, the main thing we're really going for, as I said, is pack size. We're running 4 of this card, or this Scarab. You could run 5. I've seen a lot of people saying that they've run 5, but I wanted to do more to juice the size of the packs in the maps, and Monstrous Lineage really is the best option for that. This Cloister Scarab is about 7 chaos a piece, whereas the Monstrous Lineage are somewhere in the range of like 3 to 5, so it also is a little bit of a cost savings, not a huge one, but more I just think it's like a nice multiplier on the Cloister Scarab and on everything else in the map to have 40% more magic pack size, increased magic pack size, I guess, but you know, you could do 5 Cloister Scarabs and that would also work. I just like this setup a little better. In my head, it made more sense, and it does seem like it worked pretty well. Now, I ran red Eldritch Altars, so I mostly took minion rewards, but anytime that I saw a good-looking player reward, something like quantity and rarity with a downside that wasn't a problem, or currency duplication, or div card duplication with a downside that I could handle, I would take that instead, but most of the time I just took Chaos Orbs, Cartography, or Cartographer's Chisels, that sort of thing. Regret Orbs, you know, all the usual minion reward stuff. If you're doing blue altars, which I do recommend if your build can handle them, then I would mainly take player mods, and in that case, and really in all cases, I would try to boss rush. It is better if you do a map that's boss rushable, or do a map like Jungle Valley where the boss isn't spawned in until you enter her room. But you know, it's not the end of the world. Ultimately, you can do whatever map. You can do kind of whatever you like with your map and with your Eldritch Altars and so on throughout this strategy. Now, as for the map device, as we'll kind of look at the tree here in a second, it'll make more sense, but I am once again doing domination shrines, really just to add more guys and make these maps a little bit faster. And now I'm going to take a look at the Atlas passive tree setup that I've been using for this strategy. This is fairly similar to the sort of pseudo back to basics strategy that I recommended in a recent video. And just to kind of make our way from top to bottom, we are taking a bunch of blocker nodes here. And the reason for this is we don't really care whether the league content spawns in the map or not. We're not going to do it because it's not juiced at all. But it does mean that those Scarabs get turned off. And all of these Scarabs, if we like look at the value of Scarabs on PoE Ninja real quick, the most profitable Scarabs are like Horned Scarabs, Ambush Scarabs, and then this one Ultimatum Scarab really all stand out. This one Essence Scarab stands out as well. There's one valuable Harvest Scarab, but then multiple Ambush Scarabs in the top 10, a lot of Horned Scarabs, some Divination Scarabs, but most of the League Mechanic Scarabs, Ritual Scarabs, that sort of thing, really aren't worth much. So we're blocking Ritual, we're blocking Blight, because the one Blight Scarab that is worth something, you know, it's good, but the other ones are quite low value. We're blocking Delirium. I don't really like doing Delirium Mirrors, and I don't really like doing Beyond. That's ultimately why I'm not doing either of those. You definitely could add those onto this. You could spec into that and do something kind of different from what I'm going for here, but ultimately what I'm really aiming for is a mix of the stack decks and Scarabs, and then juicing the pack size as much as I can. So we're also blocking Legion, Expedition, Abyss, and Breach, because none of those Scarabs are worth all that much. We're leaving Harvest Scarabs available, and we're leaving Ultimatum Scarabs available. And then we're taking the one node that increases our chance of getting Ambush Scarabs, and then I'm actually not taking any of the other ones, even some like Essence Scarabs, which are valuable, or Cartographer Scarabs, which are valuable and can be good for like self-farming. I'm actually not taking any of those because that kind of waters down getting the Ambush Scarabs. The most valuable Ambush Scarab is these Ambush Scarab of Containment. I only got one, but I did get one. It's worth about a divine and a half. So every time you get one of those, that's a pretty big pop of value. So definitely want to mainly emphasize those. Now, just working our way up the tree, I am taking shrine nodes. I'm taking pretty much all of them. I'm leaving off just this little one here, but I'm taking all the rest. I'm also taking all of the Scarab nodes, all the Scarab wheels, including even coming over here and taking significant troves. And then I have just kind of a couple of leftover points at the end, so I just kind of filled in this little area here because each of these points is worth 3% increased Scarabs. And like if we look at the difference here, right now I'm at 119 increased Scarabs, and then if I had taken those points and put them in somewhere else, it'd be about 104%. So the idea was just, fine, I'll take a little bit of extra Scarab juice, that's fine. Now, significant troves is usually left off of a lot of standard strategies because it only applies to unique monsters. That usually just means the map boss. But I have taken Ruckus to kind of give a little bit of juice, and I don't know if Ruckus procced a single time through 20 maps. I couldn't tell. I never felt that there was any point where I saw a couple of Rogue Exiles here and there, but I never felt like I saw 20 of them in a single map, and I certainly never felt like I saw 20 of them and then got a bunch of Scarabs from them. So I do have an alternative setup that I would actually recommend over this. I felt that this setup was a little bit of a dud, and then just kind of to finish off the rest, I took all the standard Exarch stuff, and since I am taking a lot of minion modifiers, I'm taking all of the pack size nodes available from Searing Exarch. I'm taking all of the Quantum Rarity in the middle of the tree, all of the map mod effect around the top of the tree, and that's pretty much this tree. Now, just to look at the alternative tree that I recommend instead, and I think would be a little bit better, is instead of doing anything with Rogue Exiles or coming over and taking significant troves and kind of putting that extra bit of juice into getting more Scarabs, I think it's probably worth it to take all of the map nodes, even if we're not using a Corruption Cartography Scarab to get Corrupted 8 mod maps, although I think that is a good option. You could drop one of the Cloister Scarabs, one of these Cloister Scarabs, and just take one of these right here, one Cartography Scarab of Corruption, just add that in and give yourself all of your maps dropping as Corrupted 8 mod maps. And then also give yourself a lot more tier 17 maps by doing this. Taking all of Shaping the Skies, Shaping the Mountains, Shaping the World, and then all the small passives around this area. And you will get slightly fewer Scarabs, but not significantly fewer. And then no Rogue Exiles, no Ruckus, that's fine. I like I said, I don't think I got a single Rogue Exile Ruckus proc, and I didn't miss it. It was fine. Now, in order to get all of the smaller map passives, I did have to leave the Legion and Breach, or I'm sorry, Legion and Blight blocker nodes unchecked, which means I would get some Legion and Blight Scarabs. They're okay, they're like 5 or 6 Chaos apiece for most of the Legion Scarabs, and then anywhere from like half a Chaos to 25 Chaos for the Blight ones, so they're not terrible, but you're not quite as focused on getting the Ambush Scarabs in this setup, so maybe there's some interplay you could do there, but ultimately, I think that the amount of maps that I got from this strategy, I'm kind of building up to it here. When I first started this strategy, I didn't include any of the maps that I got other than tier 17 maps and some Conqueror maps in the strategy. I didn't include any of the regular tier 16s at all. I started out with like 10 Toxic Sewer maps, and I had Toxic Sewer as my favorited map. I changed it about 15 maps through. I farmed like 50 Toxic Sewer maps in the span of doing 20 maps, and then I switched it over to City Square. I think I had 2 of these. I farmed another 10 City Squares, along with a bunch of other maps that weren't on my faves and are just kind of randomly thrown in here. So I farmed literally hundreds of maps, probably 200 maps in the span of this 20 map set, because these packs, the amount of monsters that are in these maps is insanely high. These are so dense, these maps. They are just throwing maps at you like crazy. So in my big dump tab here, I have 3 Conqueror maps and 6 tier 17 maps. Ziggurat map has just suddenly spiked up in value. It's over 100 Chaos a piece now, pretty significant. And if we look at my my spreadsheet here, where I kind of talk or have my like prices listed out and my profits listed out, it cost about 920 Chaos to do all of this. It was like 80 Cloister Scarabs, 20 Monstrous Lineage Scarabs, and then 20 8-mod Corrupted maps, which I counted at 10 Chaos apiece, as well as the Domination map device on all of those maps, so right at 920 for my whole cost. And then, according to my Wealthy Exile stash tab, it was worth 19 divines. I actually sat and mathed this out a little bit, and it's actually closer to 19.5 divines. So I think actually this is more like 19.5. They don't do any sort of rounding or anything, you know, it just, or any sort of decimal points. It's just, you know, they round it either up or down. And I think they just rounded it down to 19, but it's actually more like 19 and a half. So with all of that being said, not clearing these maps super quickly, I made about 9 divines an hour. I think a faster build could do this quite a bit, well, I mean, quite a bit faster for a reason that I will elaborate on in a second here, but I think it's pretty much any build that can handle proximity shields or just simply move faster or has phasing or even just has like a high amount of evasion could do this quite a bit faster and probably be more in the 3.5 to 4 minute range, 3.5, not 90 second. For 30-second maps, but anywhere from probably like 3.5 to 4 minutes, I think, is a reasonably attainable speed on these maps. And this is all just raw currency, right? Like, you're going to be able to farm probably about 10 divines per hour in, I think, the majority of decent T16 viable builds and not have to deal with any sort of trading with anybody to convert like maps into chaos or divines. You're just literally able to go to the currency exchange and say, turn these 500 stack decks into however many divines or however many chaos. I think that's pretty great. Now, I have included just like for ease of use here, I've included the number of stack decks, Ziggurat maps, Conqueror maps, Veldos puzzle boxes, and containment scarabs I got. I also got 1 raw divine. I didn't double count these or anything. I just included the Wealthy Exile value here, 19.5 divines. So right around 100 chaos per map of profit. You know, about tripling my money, spending about 46 chaos per map and bringing in a little under 150 chaos per map. I really wanted this to be 20 divines for the whole 20 map farm, so I could say 1 divine per map. That would have been really, really nice. Unfortunately, it didn't quite come out that way, but that's okay. Now, the reason that these maps took me a little while is the Deidre's Devoted, or whatever the names are, yeah. These guys have proximity shields, and because the packs are so incredibly dense, it is really difficult for a build that doesn't have some way to penetrate proximity shields and doesn't have phasing to actually hit these guys. And so I died a lot because there were a lot of times where I would walk up to a proximity shielded pack that has tons and tons and tons of mobs with proximity shields. I'm trying to get right in the middle of all of them so that I can hit them, and I just keep getting pushed out by like body blocking, and I found that very annoying. But on the other hand, even with the kind of slowdown of dying, I feel like on most of the maps, I still felt like this strategy was pretty quick and pretty rewarding. And obviously any sort of ability, Toxic Rain, Caustic Arrow, Must Mine abilities, minions, anything that can hit monsters that are inside of a proximity shield is going to have no problem with this mechanic at all. If you were even to just drop one of these Cloister Scarabs and run something else, that would probably result in so many fewer packs of these guys with their proximity shields that it would probably significantly reduce the difficulty and up your clear speed, and probably actually be more profitable per hour. Probably a lot more profitable per hour if you're able to clear these maps in like 3.5 minutes instead of 4.5. But, you know, this is the approach that I took for this, just kind of trying to min-max the amount of stacked decks that I could pull out. And I mean, I got over 25 a map, which feels pretty decent. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, as for doing these on tier 17s, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea. As it says, it adds 8 to 12 packs of Daedrus Devoted. That doesn't seem like it's going to change whether you're doing these on tier 16s or tier 17s, so I would rather just do them on faster maps and get the same amount of return either way, so I don't think there's a reason to do these on tier 17s, personally. And then finally, I think something that's really amazing about this strategy as well, basically just coming from all of the density, is the amount of gold that I was pulling down per map. In the span of 20 maps, I made 635,000 gold. This is not a super hard juicing strategy. We're not doing Delirium. We're not doing any sort of beyond stuff. We're not doing anything that's like super, super difficult. No tormented monsters, nothing like that, and still making over 30,000 gold per map, really just by having a massive amount of small, easy to kill dudes in every map. You know, I think the ideal setup for this, I think the ideal build for this, probably even more than like Toxic Raid Pathfinder or something like that, would just be a Cyclone Slayer. Just hold right mouse button down and just buzzsaw through the entire map and blast through and just pick up everything along the way, never having to stop. And, you know, basically chainsaw your way through monsters for like 30,000 gold per map, which if you're able to clear those out in 4 minutes a map, 60 divided by 4 times 31k, that's like 450,000 to 500,000 gold an hour. That would probably be the most fun possible approach in my mind. Now, there was one sort of jackpot drop that I got along the way. It's less than a divine, but it was an Iron Fortress. It is a strength stacking chest. I really like this body armor a lot. I probably am gonna hand 6-link it and try to make some sort of build around it. Not this build, not this Berserker character, but some sort of strength stacker. I just haven't decided yet what I'm gonna do with this, but something with strength stacking at some point, for sure. All right, I do think that pretty much wraps things up. In conclusion, I think that this farm strategy rocks. It's super duper simple. You kill the guys and they give you currency. It's really not any more complicated than that. I do think that going in more of a map farming direction where you could get more tier 60 or tier 17 maps, like I think if I had gone heavy on the map drop chance from the Atlas passive tree instead of more Scarabs, I think I probably would have come out with like 8 or 9 tier 17 maps. And especially if I'd gone in a corrupting 8 mod map direction, I would have easily over-sustained all of the maps that I was farming and had a lot of 8 mod corrupted maps for either myself to run or to sell to other people or to feed to my map farming team, who are doing a great job. They've been getting me divines in the last couple of days. I'm pretty happy with that. That's it. Thanks for watching and good luck with your drops. Bye.